Good day, dear students. Welcome to the English as a school subject. I'll be your tutor for this module. My name is Susana Ipinge, and my contact details, you are able to contact me through email and also through my phone. My emails is follows susanaipinge@gmail.com. Students are welcome to contact me if you have any inquiries or something that you don't understand in the module. You are able to contact me and I can explain further or let you know exactly what you need to do. And as we know, the prescribed material for this module, it will be the study guide that is provided. That is the basic material that we'll be using for this module, but students are not limited to just the study guide that is provided, but they can also do further researches by using different readings that you can even get on internet. You are able to get different reading materials because it's English, so English is not really limited to a certain book, but then this the study guide provides as the basis of what actually will be covered in this module. So the first part that we'll look at is the features and the importance of the accurate forms of communication. As we say, what is communication exactly? That the word communication refers to the exchange of information between two or more people. So when two or more people are exchanging any type of information, that is what we call communication. So basically that is the definition of what communication is. Communication can be done in different means, and there are different means that you can say that they are forms of accurate communication. And those forms of accurate communication includes when you smile, it's also a form of communication. If you look at a certain person and you smile at the person will know that what sort of communication are you trying, what are you trying to communicate? Are you happy? Or even if I say something to you and you give me a smile, I'll say that it prompted you to give that certain sign, and that is a form of accurate communication. So we say the forms of accurate communication, we have a smile, even a touch. If somebody is not feeling well, you touch them, they'll know that you are there for them. Or even just even a handshake, it's a form of a touch. The person will know you are greeting, so that is also a form of accurate communication. Also, when you nod, you can give a signal to a person. When you nod, whether you say yes or no, it's also a form of communication. And then we have personal space. Personal space is when you communicate what exactly do you want to get from the person that you are communicating with. When you look at the person and you try to exactly tell the person what do you need from that person, it's also a form of personal space. You creating that space between you and the person you are trying to communicate to. What exactly are you trying to tell that person is also a form of that personal space. And then we have eye movement or eye contact. Previously, we know in some traditions, maybe if an elder person looks at you, maybe visitors come in and they look at you with by their eye contact, you know what are they exactly trying to tell you. Are they trying to tell you that maybe go out of the room, or maybe even calling you without exactly saying the words? So these forms of accurate communication, we see that they are symbols or they are signs. We are not using words, but rather just the movement of the body. When you smile, when you touch, when you nod, or when you make use of eye contact or eye movement. So those are forms of accurate communication that we're talking about in these features and the importance of accurate communication. So it's very important to know what forms of accurate communication can you use to communicate accurately without actually using words. So those are the forms of accurate communication. And then we move on to the basic concepts. What are the concepts that we can really use in English when we are studying English as a subject? So it's very important that we know the concept that actually explain how English as a language is understood. How do you understand English as a language? What forms of words do you know? How do you get to learn English as a language as a whole? So when we talk about these concepts that like morphology, syntax, semantics, and phonics, these are the concepts that basically help us to understand what English is, helps us get the meaning of different words in English, helps us to form sentences, help us to for us to be able to divide words and say, if for example the word happy, and we add the prefix of "un" and make it unhappy, what exactly helps us to know the meaning of that? So when we talk about these concepts, they are explaining to us actually how the English language is constructed and how the meaning is made. So how exactly are these meanings made, and how are these words constructed in order for them to give us that exact meaning? Because we know if you just put letters together and they don't make any meaning in English, obviously you'll not be able to make a meaning. But then if you know, and for example, if you get a person that does not know how to speak English, or they're not able to read English, and you even just send a letter to them or write any sentence, they won't be able to read because they do not understand the concepts behind how these words are formed, or how those words are formed, how are they constructed actually as because it's in the English language. So now for us to be able to understand the English language, we now need to know these concepts of morphology, syntax, and semantics and phonics that help us to understand how these words are constructed and how meaning is actually formed. So the first concept that we can look at is what we call morphology, and we say that morphology is the study of the structure of words. When you're studying how words are formed, how these words are structured, that is what we call morphology. So morphology is the study of the structure of words. And when we talk about morphology, then that's when we come to the word morpheme. So morphology is the study itself of how the structure of the word, and then we talk about now morpheme. So when we talk about the structure of the words, there is a morpheme, and when we talk about the morpheme, then that is the smallest unit that has meaning. So every word in the language should have meaning for it to be called a morpheme. If you just put a letter, let me say you put A and E, and even an X together, it doesn't have any meaning. It doesn't make any word. Or even the word happy itself, if you remove the letter H, and then it will be happy, and if you are an English language speaker or you understand the language, it wouldn't make any sense. So that wouldn't constitute as part of the morpheme. So we say that a morpheme is the smallest unit that has meaning. So if a word, if letters are just put together and they don't have meaning, then it doesn't consist. It's not a morpheme. So morphology is the study of how, or the study of the structure of the words, and then morpheme now is the smallest unit that has meaning within that, within the word. So when we talk about now the morpheme, that's when we now talk about we have the root word or the root affixes, and then that's when we talk about now the prefixes and then the suffixes. When we talk about the root word, those are words that have meaning on their own. So that is the root word. So the example that I gave earlier, like the word happy. If you talk about the word happy and you want to change the meaning, the moment you change the meaning of the word happy, because happy it's a root word on its own. Happy on its own, it already has meaning. The moment you now try to add letters to that main word, like happy, for you to have different meaning. For example, if you add U and N, un, then it becomes unhappy. Then that the U and the un that you added at the beginning, that becomes the prefix. So any letters that you add before the word to change the meaning of the word, that is what you call a prefix. And then if you have to add letters at the end of the word, like if the word is happy and then you make it happiness, then you add INESS, that means that it changes the meaning of the word, and then that becomes the suffix. So suffix is what you add after the main word, and then the prefix is what you add before the main word. So and when we talk about morphemes, we say that it's any word that has meaning. So the letter unhappy on its own, un has a meaning already. When you say un, it means that you are not happy, so it has meaning. So that also constitutes a morpheme. That's why I say that a morpheme can be a root word itself, or it can be words that you add to the main word, the root word, in order to change the meaning of the word. So it also comes in when we talk about morphemes and morphology. So the next concept that we move on when we are studying the meaning of words, or how meaning is made in English, is the syntax. When we talk about the syntax, it's study of how words combine to form meaning. So when we talk about syntax, this is when we how we speak, how we form sentences. If you are not able, if you cannot, if you're not able to actually state how you can form sentences in English, then that means you will not be able to speak the language. So you need to know how do you combine these words in order to form up a meaningful sentence. So you just being able to state different words on their own. If you say eat, dog, girl, boy, child, it doesn't make any sense. So that's why now you need to study the syntax to know how can you combine these words to make meaningful sentences, to give a meaning to those words. So that's when the syntax come in, and we see that it's the study of how words combine to actually form meaning. So that is syntax. And then we have semantics also. That's when we study the meaning of the words. So when we talk about happy, what does it mean? When we talk about eat, what exactly does it mean? So semantics is the meaning of the word, and syntax is how you combine those words now to form sentence. So most of the time students do make they get confused between what syntax and what semantics. So syntax is when you combine those words to form meaningful sentence, and semantics is when you get the meaning of the word. What does that word mean? If we are talking about a dog, what is a dog? So that is semantics. So you have to understand what a dog is in order for you to be able to identify how does that object such as a dog look like. So that is what we call semantics. And then finally, the other concept that we look at when we study the meaning of the words, or how we form concepts in English, is what we call phonics. When we talk about phonics, it's the pattern that words form in the mind of the speaker of the language. So if you know, you are able to identify the different concepts that belongs to different languages. And in this particular instance, in English, if I speak English, we're able to identify that no, this language is English. And when we talk about phonics, we talk about how do you pronounce those words. The moment I pronounce a certain words, you are able to pick up in your mind that this is English. If I speak in Oshiwambo, you are able to pick up that this is Oshiwambo. If I speak German, you are able to say, no, this is German. And this is attributed to phonics, because you are able to pick up in your mind, you have that pattern that those words, or when you pronounce a word like this, you base it to a different language, that this is what. So that is a pattern that is in your mind, because you speak the language, or you understand the language. So that is phonics. And the phonics, you can be able to identify a language without actually you being able to speak it, and that is also phonics. And how you pronounce the words and all that, it's constituted in what we call the concepts of phonics. So those are some of the basic concepts that you come across as you study English. So be able to know what is morphology, and when we talk about morphology and morphemes and syntax and semantics, those all constitute of how we are able to get meaning of different sentences, whether it's clauses, whether it's paragraphs. Through semantics and syntax, we are able to do that, and through phonics, we are able to identify what type of language it is. So we move on to what we call the word classes, or part of speech. When we talk about the parts of speech, that's when we talk about the nouns, the adverbs, the pronouns, all those constitute of the what we call part of speech. Most of the time, Paul refer to them as part of speech rather than word classes, but just be able to know that whether we say word classes or part of speech, it's exactly the same thing. So what are word classes? Now this part of speech, they are actually divided into two parts. We have the open word classes, and then we also have what we call the closed word classes. So when we say open, the word open itself already gives you the meaning that you are able to bring in new words within these classes because it's open. New words are able to be derived, new words are coined, and we see even as we evolve through social media, new words come up and we give them new meaning. So that is what we call open word classes. You are able to bring in new nouns, new verbs, new adjectives, new adverbs according to how we revolve. So those are open word classes. So when we talk about open word classes, these are what we call form classes or called content word or open classes. So what the nouns, as we know, nouns are names that we give to things. So for example, when we say a house, a pet, a river, those are all examples of nouns. So nouns are names that we give to things. And then we talk about the verbs, which the most basic definition that we give to verbs is that they are doing words. Any word that describes a certain action, that is what we call a verb. For example, swimming, running, talking, writing, drinking, all those are part of what we call verbs. So any doing word, it's a verb, and we say that those are open classes because we are able to add a new noun within that noun class. We are able to add new verbs within those verb classes. And then we talk about adjectives, which we say that they mainly describe the verb. So adjectives such as pretty, rude, clever, so all those are adjectives because they describe the noun. And then you're able to say it's a pretty girl, it's a rude boy, it's a smart child. So when you are describing a noun, you use adjectives. And then we also have the adverbs, the adverb that describes a verb, such as bravely, fast, so she's running fast, when she's running quickly. So all those words that describes the verb, those are adverbs. And in all these form classes such as noun, verb, adjectives, and adverbs, you are able to add new words. As we revolve, new words are added in these classes, and that's why we call them open classes. And then we have now what we call the closed word classes, which means that in this part of speeches, we do not add new words. Those words, they are stagnant, they remain as such. For example, the determiners, we have the definite article such as there, and the indefinite article such a and n. So you are not able, no matter how much the language really evolves, no new determiners really come up. They remain there and n. So that is what we call closed word classes, because no new words are able to come in. Even pronouns, when we say pronouns, they replace nouns in sentences such as she, he, it, they, them. There are no really new pronouns that can be added in those classes. Even the auxiliary verbs such as can, could, should, may, all those, you are not able to add new words in them. That's why they are identified as closed word classes. So even preposition, whether it's under the table, on the table, beside the table, all those are closed word classes because we are not really able to add new words. Those words remain as they are, and as such they are called closed word classes. So those are the part of speeches in English that we make use of in everyday language, in our everyday use, or as we use English as a language. So when we talk about parts of speech or how we form meaning in English, there are ways that you can also, there are what we call using, you can also use the apostrophe, and sometimes we refer to it as the English apostrophe. So the apostrophe is used in English for two very distinct reasons. It's also part of what we call the, such as when you use question marks, you use full stop, so also in apostrophe we use it as such. So but there is significant, just as you use the full stop to end a sentence, or even a capital letter to start a new sentence, also in apostrophe have a distinct use in English. So why do you make use of an apostrophe? We basically make use of it to form contractions. And when we talk that it's forming a contraction. It basically means that you are showing, when you skip when you combine two words to form one sentence, such as an example, such as don't. Don't, it was supposed to be two words and you combine them as one. Now you use an apostrophe to show that you have actually omitted a certain letter within that word, because you have now combined it to form one word, such as don't. Now you are you put an apostrophe where you have omitted that letter, such as the O that you do not put in don't. So you use an apostrophe to show that. So it's to form a contraction. That means that you contract the word, you make it smaller and you make it one. So when you say don't, the full word it should have been do not, but then you just contract it to say don't. You say can't instead of saying cannot. So as such, it's forming a contraction just to show that you have omitted a certain letter in that word. So you can use an apostrophe to form contractions. And then the second use of an apostrophe is actually to show possession, to show that this belongs to a certain person. Such an example, such as it is the girl's head. So now for you to show that this head belongs to this girl, you use now the apostrophe to show that it belongs to this person. So be careful that you do not use an apostrophe where you have not omitted a letter, or not to show possession, that this belongs to a certain person. So those are the two use of apostrophe, or why we make use of an apostrophe in English, to either form a contraction or to show possession, that this belongs to a certain person. Then we move on to what we call the synonyms and the antonyms in English. Basically, when you talk about the synonyms, the S itself should remind you that it's something that should be similar. So when we talk about synonyms, are words that are similar in meaning. Whether you make use of one word or use the other word, it should give you the same meaning. Whether you use, for example, the words that I gave there, large and big. Whether you say it's a big room or it's a large room, it doesn't change the meaning of the sentence. Whether you say it's the last time I'll see you, or it's the final time I'll see you, it still have the same meaning. So when we talk about synonyms, it should be similar meaning. Words that have similar meaning, those are what we call synonyms. And then we have antonyms. Antonyms are words that have opposite meaning. So when you say far and near, far doesn't mean near. So when words have opposite meaning, that is what we call antonyms. So students should not get confused between what synonyms are and what antonyms are. Synonyms, similar meaning. Antonyms, which means it's antagonistic. They are not agreeing. Those two words are not agreeing, such as fast and slow. If you are fast, you are fast. If you're slow, you are slow. But fast does not mean slow, or birth does not mean, if somebody gave birth and death, it's not the same meaning. But then when we talk about synonyms, it gives us the similar meaning. Whether you say the person is thin or the person is slim, it's the same meaning. But when you say the person is fat or the person is thin, they are two different things. So that is what antonyms are. Antonyms, they are different, and synonyms, they are similar meaning. So we move on to what we call analyzing a text for reading comprehension. So when you are reading a text, you shouldn't just read the text for fun, but then you should read a text for you to actually understand what is written in that text. What exactly are you required to get from a certain text that you are reading? Even when you are reading for fun, there is certain information that you should be able to retain, that I read this certain text, and this text was about what exactly am I looking for from this text that I'm reading. So when you are analyzing a text now for reading comprehension, for you to be able to understand what you are reading, these are some of the reasons that why you should actually analyze a text when you are reading. So you analyze a text to explicate or give a close or precise reading. You have to look at it and be able to tell the next person what have you read in the certain text. So you are able to give a summary of what you read. So that is one of the reasons we analyze a text. And also the other one is to find the meaning beyond the obvious. If I just tell you that no, this text is about a girl that was murdered and the killer was not found, you yourself have to dig deeper and find what exactly happened, what happened before that girl got killed, and what happened exactly. So you are trying to find the meaning beyond the obvious. Just by reading the heading, you wouldn't get the full story of what happened. So you are now trying to read the whole story and find what beyond the obvious, what people have already told you, what you have heard about. So that's one of the reasons we are also trying to read, to analyze the text. You also try to include and incorporate the background into the text. So when you know the background of a certain story, you are able to actually explain it better and understand it better. So you are trying now to incorporate, did the certain event have an effect on what actually happened? So you are now trying to include and incorporate the background into the text. Did maybe the background of the a certain character have a certain effect on the event that happened thereafter? So you are trying to understand, maybe the author wrote about their what they have experienced previously, maybe in their childhood. So we are trying to find out certain background information to help you understand the meaning, or to actually understand the text beyond what is written on the paper. So that is also one of the reasons we analyze text. And then you also try to compare the text with other similar texts. So especially in education formats, we have certain scholars that write about, it might be the same topic, it might be on something similar that they are both writing about, but they both have different opinions. So you now try to compare those texts and see, are these authors, are they writing about the same thing? Are the findings the same? Or if these findings are not the same, they're different, what exactly are the causes? So you are trying to now compare this text and get the meaning exactly. Why are these authors trying to writing about the same thing, yet they are writing different things? So you are trying to get that, you get the deeper meaning of what the text is all about by comparing similar texts. So you also place the text in context. What was the surroundings? What effect had the surrounding had on what this author wrote? So you use the text to prove actually why the thesis. If now this certain text that you are reading is similar to what other authors have said, you are trying now to compare and see that yes, the information that's written here is also similar to what other authors have written. So there might be a certain truth to it, or what exactly are you trying to, do you agree with what they are writing, or do you disagree? Because then also your values, what you believe in, also comes into question when you are trying to analyze a text. What the author has written, is it a wide known fact, or is it just is it an individual opinion? Because there are facts and opinions. So you are able to now see whether it's a fact or it's an opinion that this single author has tried to raise by writing that text. So that is why we analyze text. So we not just analyze text for the sake of, we do not just read, but we read to comprehend. You read to understand what exactly is the text all about, what is written in the text. So how can you now also further explain that information to the second reader? Because if you read a text to understand, then you are able to actually tell the next reader, what have you read about, what was the main idea, what were the findings that this certain author has written about in this text. So that is why we analyze and read text to understand, not just read for fun. So we move on to what is the thesis of a text. So when you are reading a text, it has different components, and one of these components is what we call the thesis. So the thesis of a piece of writing, it refers to the central or main idea of the text, and it describes the main aim or the purpose of the text. So when we talk about the aim or the purpose of the text, that is what we call the thesis. So when this author wrote this text, what exactly were they referring to? What is the main idea behind this text? So it describes the main aim or the purpose of the text. So that is what a thesis is. So the main idea of what that whole text is, that is what we call the thesis or the thesis statement as such. So there are a number of steps that one can take in order for you to, when you are reading a text, in order for you to find the thesis of the text, you can use different steps. And some of the steps are like, you can read the text a few times until you are sure that you understand the meaning. So at times you read the text the first time and you really do not get what you're reading about, and then you read it again the second time and you start slowly but surely, you start getting the idea of exactly what is this text all about. So that is how you try to understand a text. So when you read the text a few times until you are sure you understand the meaning, that's now when you try to get what this thesis is. So you think about the text, does it interest you and why? So the moment you try to question yourself, like, what is the importance of this text, or what have I read in this text, what main idea did I pick up in this text? As such, you are trying to identify the thesis. So is there anything that seemed out of the ordinary or strange? Did you pick up something strange when you are reading about this? Did you agree with everything that you read, or were there something that is so questionable to you that rings a bell, or you continuously keep reminding yourself of in the text? So that is what we call identifying a thesis. So you write down the question that you would want to ask about the text. So for instance, you discuss the text with the writer, what would you like to ask about the text? So there are questions, there are texts that leave questions in our mind after you read them. So are you able to identify those questions? Are you able to identify those questions and be able to answer them on your own as such? So that is part of what a thesis text is, and being able to identify the thesis of a text. So we move on to critical reading of a text. So being able to just identify the thesis statement, it's not enough, but be a critical reader, be able to actually question what you are reading. And for you now to be able to critically read the text, you need certain strategies that you can use. You can use previewing, which we call also skimming. That means that you basically just read the headlines and just briefly read through, just not read the whole text, but you're just previewing and seeing what exactly this text is all about. Does it at times you use those strategies to actually be able to identify what piece of reading would you like to read. So you can use previewing, and then contextualizing. You try to put what you're reading in context. Then you also try to question the text, whether you remember or whether you understand what you read. And then you also now reflect on the challenges and the values of beliefs. There are those writers that will leave you questioning your beliefs or what you have known previously. So you are able to outline now and summarize all those aspects and see how critical you understand the reading. So that is what you call critical reading, being able to question whatever you are reading through contextualizing. You evaluate the argument that they are making. Is it sensible, or what do other authors also say? So those are the questions that you come up when you are being a critical reader or reading a text critically. So those are some of the bases to help you read and analyze a text using critical strategies that you need. There's also what we call writing a report. This is one of forms of writing that you also use in English when you write a report. So when you're writing a report, there are certain aspects that should be involved in that, you should include in that report writing. So you have to clarify your terms of reference. And when you say terms of reference, where exactly are you getting this information that you are using in this certain report? And then you plan your report exactly. How exactly do you want your report to be? You put everything in order and say, this is how I want my report to be. Then you now collect your information, and then you have to organize and structure that information correctly. When you organize and structure the information correctly, you are now able to exactly see how would you lay out your report as you're writing. And we know the basic elements that all reports should contain. A report should have a title page, it should have content, it should have an abstract, it should have an introduction, methodology, it should have results and finding, discussion, conclusion, and recommendation, the references, the appendices, and when you are writing a report, you just don't immediately write one report, but you also have to write it. You first maybe write a draft, and then you remember something, you edit up until you keep checking, and you redraft your report until you write now the report that you feel like it's worth it, and by including all those certain aspects within the report. And it's important to know that every report should have a title page. Why should it have the title page? And if it's an abstract, why exactly should it have this abstract? And what should your abstract contain? And also the references. You have to give us the information of exactly where are you getting your information. So you should use references to refer to the different authors where you have found your information when you're writing a report. Then we come to what we call the characteristics of academic writing. There is a difference between what an academic is required to know when you are writing, rather than just writing maybe like a piece of paper, or let me say a friendly letter to a friend. So when you're doing academic writing, you should consider the facts and the figures that you're writing. The style of writing is objective. That's why we say that you do not use the words such as I, but you rather use the word we, which is objective. So every finding in academics should not just be about one certain author, but it should be something, a proven fact. So that should be involved in academic writing. So academic writing is explicit, and it should show that other authors, they are also able to, or let me say other researchers, they are able to carry out that research and exactly find the same information. So that is what academic writing does. So your main emphasis is on the information, not how it makes you feel or how you could respond. So it's not about your personal feelings when it comes to academic writing, but you write about the facts, not your opinion, not how you thought this certain thing should go, but you write about the facts. So that is the characteristic of academic writing. So as a teacher, you should be able to now promote the culture of reading. So you have a role to play when you are teaching the learners. The learners, some learners hardly even find even a newspaper or even a novel to read. So you as a teacher, you should play a certain role in encouraging now those learners to actually read. So you should provide a stimulating reading materials to the learners. You should find what interests the learner. If maybe they like certain books, they like certain topics, try to find those books, give them to the learners, then you encourage the learners to read those books, and as such you are actually promoting a reading culture. You encourage the learners to bring books, magazine, newspaper to the classroom. You find that some learners, they like reading, but they don't have access to reading materials. So you as a teacher, you can as well provide some reading materials such as magazine, newspaper. Make it fun for them to actually enjoy reading, and not just feel like they are being forced to actually read. So you set aside and you keep specific reading times. It's important, give them that time, even if it's just 15 minutes of reading time, it's enough for the student. Just keep stimulating that reading culture in the student. So there are different skills to master reading. For you to be able to really know that yes, this certain student can read, there are different skills that they can actually make use of. They predict what characters will do and say. They use context to find the meaning of unknown words and expressions. So the moment you are starting to read, you are able to actually draw up your own conclusion when you are reading. And there's some skills that learners can also pick up in order for them to master reading. They use the context to find the meanings. At times when you read certain readings, you do not know the meanings of certain words. So that's when now you use words, and then you make a list of words that you do not understand, and then you can make now use of the dictionary to actually find out what is being said as such. So it's very, very important that teachers help the students to master to have that skills of reading. Then we move on to the different types of So when we have novels, we have different types of novels. We have what we call the picaresque narrative, or picaresque novels. So what those novels, when you talk about the picaresque, historical novels, realistic novels, educational novels, or artist novels, they are all novels, but these novels all contain different things. What are the main themes when we talk about historical novels? What exactly do these authors concentrate on when we talk about these different types of novels? So those are different types of novel, and they cover different things, like the educational or the formative one. It's an educative type of novel that students or even readers can learn something from it. And then we have the realistic novels that write about everyday life stories. It's a story that many are able to relate to, so that is what we call the realistic novel. And then we have many other different types of novel that you can look at, like the historical ones, and the social ones. So those are all different types of novels that one can look at and be able to identify which types of novel really interest you. Do you like the educational ones? Do you like the historical one? Do you like the social one? So depending on understanding the context of what these different novels contain, you'll be able to identify which novels you can actually read just by looking at those different aspects. And then when we talk about novels, we have different points of view. We have when we read novels, stories are told from different point of views. There is the first person narration, or which we call the first person point of view. And when we talk about the first person point of view, this is mainly when the author makes use of the personal pronouns such as I, we, us, as the narrator also being part of the story. So that is what we call the first person narration, or the first person point of view when authors are writing books. So it's up to the author to decide which point of view to use in the novel. And then we have what we call now the third person narration. And this third person narration include the omniscient narrator. When we talk about the omniscient narrator, this is when the author knows exactly what that certain character will do in the story. They know everything, they know the happenings of the story, but the author themselves, they are not part of the story, but rather they are just telling the story, and the story is about certain characters that this author has come up with, and that is what they are talking about, and that is what we call the third person point of view, or that the author is not part of the story, but they're rather just telling the readers about what is in the story. So when we are now writing short stories, we have different aspects that we need to consider, such as senses, the senses, which means the feeling, the touching, the smelling. So things that will make the reader question themselves by using their senses, whether it's the eyes, so use descriptive words, whether it's the smell, whether it's the taste, so use descriptive words to paint a certain picture in the mind of the reader. So that is what we call senses. And then the point of view, whether it's the first or the second person or the third person narration, it's up to the writer. And the action, what exactly should happen in the novel, and then also characters. So for you to be able to write a short story, you should make these points, have these points, and be able to know exactly what is required of you. So there is a prescribed short story or novel that you should be able to read, and that is the All Quiet on the Western Front by Eric Maria Lamarck. It's provided in the study guide, so be able to read that. And when you read that, how important is the title of All Quiet on the Western Front? How important is it to that novel? And also there are different characters in the novel, such as such as Paul Baumer, the Albert Cropper. So those are all characters. How important, what role do these characters play? And also the themes, how important are these themes and the motifs within this novel? So pay attention to the novel All Quiet on the Western Front and be able to know all those different features within that. And then we have the different technical features that you find in all different types of dramas, which we have structure, how is the story made up. Then we have theme, which we say is the main idea of what the story is all about, and the mood, how does the feeling that this story arouse in the reader, what actually, how does this story make you feel. And then also know about the different characters, such as the protagonist and then the antagonist, and the different parts of the types of drama, such as the plot, the climax, and when we talk about the form of tragedy or comedy as type of drama, what exactly are we talking about as such. And then we have the different types of poem, and when we talk about poem, that's when we talk about the imagery, what words are the poet using in order for them to give us the image of what exactly this type of poem is all about, the diction, the types of words that these poets are choosing in order for them to paint a certain mood, to give us a certain tone, which words are they using. And then we have the different types of poems, such as the sonnets, the haiku, the limerick poem. These all poems contain different things, and it's very important that we know that when we talk about the sonnet, when we talk about the Shakespearean sonnet that contains 14 lines, and then it has the rhyming couplet. So those are how we identify the different poems. And just to conclude, it's very important for the student to take note that the PowerPoint presentation actually, it's a guide. It's not a study material. It's very important that you make use of your study guide, make use of extra study material such as the internet, and acquaint yourself with the content of the module. It does not help anything and for you to just read the question and not understand, but when you know the content, when you pay attention to the content and be able to identify what exactly is the question asking about. Is it asking you to describe? And if it's asking you to mention things, if it's asking you to describe, make sure you describe the thing. Do not just mention, do not just list, but rather mention. So you must read the question carefully and know exactly what is required of you. So good luck with your exam, dear students. But if you have any questions, you need any clarity on a certain topic, you are able to contact me, and I'll actually be able to assist you as such. So thank you very much, and good luck with your exams.